Hi everyone, welcome to the latest episode of the Mental Brew podcast. Today we have Tim Marron coming on. So Tim is a sports psychologist. So Tim is going to share his journey within the field and his journey as a business owner. So Tim, how are you keeping?
All good, Dennis. Thanks a million for having me on today. Looking forward to the chat.
No bother, right? Delighted to have you. So Tim, why do you do what you do?
I suppose first of all, it's I love sport.
Mm,
Always been mad into sport. From a young age, I always had a ball at my feet or a ball in my hands,
yeah,
whatever sport it was. Always been mad into it. So I suppose even at the age of 15, 16, 17, I started getting interested in sports psychology.
mm,
Started hearing more about it. Started reading about it. And then from there, I got really interested in how the mind works and why people behave certain ways.
yeah,
And yeah, I mean, why do I do it today? I suppose there's certainly lots of rewarding moments with it. I think one of the main bits is those light bulb moments when you're
yeah,
working with someone and you see just the light bulb go off in their mind when they realize something. So that could be realizing that they're putting too much pressure on themselves, and that's why their performance is breaking down under pressure or something like that. That's probably for me. It's one of the most rewarding parts when
mm,
they realize that,
yeah,
and then following on from that, then they see the impact that it has on their performance and the smiles in their faces and everything. It's really nice to see. So I suppose for the one-to-one work, I really like that stuff, helping somebody figure out what's going on for them and
mm,
how they can, I suppose get a better control over how their thinking is affecting their performance.
amazing.
Um, and then the team stuff. I mean, it's just brilliant being part of a team.
Yeah,
And the highs and the lows. Obviously, the lows are pretty tough sometimes,
mm,
and being around for that. But I think, yeah, when you see the smiles on people's faces after a big win or a big performance, it's pretty special to be part of.
mm,
And then there's also just the side of it that I think I can apply lots of the things I teach athletes to myself as well, my own work, which is really nice. Being self-employed, you know yourself. It's kind of you have to be self-driven and apply lots of things to yourself as well to stay motivated. So there's loads of stuff I like about the job, but those are probably the main few.
do you know when you decided to go down the sports psychology route? So you would have, I'm guessing you would have done undergrad in
Yeah,
psychology at some level or some stage, and then did you while you did a master's in
I
sports and
was
exercise
in
psychology?
yeah. So I did the applied psychology in University College Cork, and then after that I did the masters in sport exercise and performance psychology in University of Limerick. Yeah,
And
yeah.
do you know now, right? So you're finishing up the college course in UCC, so you have an idea where you want to go. You're looking at the masters in sport and exercise psychology. Which was when or how far into the journey did you realize that hang on, there's not a lot of employment out there, so I literally have to create a business for this to work.
Probably a few months before I finished the masters. Yeah, yeah. I was probably a bit naive going into it, to be honest. I mean, I'm glad I did it, of course, and really enjoyed it. But I probably didn't fully realize what I needed to do after. I think as well, all your friends, all people same age as you, it's probably a different journey for lots of them.
Yeah.
Where there's kind of most other industries, there's more of a pathway, I suppose. So I probably didn't realize what was ahead of me, to be perfectly honest with you, Dennis. What I think what really hit me was once they finished it, because you've been in full time education, in school, college, and you've had kind of that safety net for years, and then all of a sudden you're out into the open, into the big bad world, and you got to figure out what to do.
Bills to
So
pay.
that yeah, it hit me at that point, I think, and that was when I got part time work. I was doing social care stuff, so I wasn't straight into full on sports psychology. Now I did get some part time stuff, so I was really lucky to get some work with Clonakilty Gaelic footballers,
Mm,
and I did some one to one stuff with people that I knew,
yeah.
just kind of building up experience and learning, and slowly but surely it grew up to the point where I could finally do it full time. But yeah, it was certainly quite daunting, quite felt quite lost, to be honest, when I first came out of the masters.
Yeah, the word lost there is a fairly strong word. Would say I would have been similar. So I was coming from teaching, so you turn up, you do your 22 hours a week, Now, 22 hours a week isn't exactly hectic in terms of, how hard you're going to be working or whatnot. But you're getting paid every 2 weeks and you get your money and it's great and you pay into your pension every paycheck. But very unfulfilled in it. So I would have started up Fusion Performance saying, Jesus, about 2 or 3 years ago. But I remember I was doing it while I was teaching and nothing was happening because I was just getting paid. You'd be home like, oh, geez, I'm wrecked. And, there was no
Yeah,
kind of driver to go further with it. So I remember I made the decision to not go back full time teaching, go back subbing. But I remember it was in August I started on lads. I remember I had to do cold calls. I remember it was a Monday, and I'd say it was the following week or 2 weeks that I actually made that call that I originally sit down to make because it was so alien to me, and it was
yeah,
lost is a perfect word to describe where I was as well. It was mad, like, because you're going, what do I do? Where does the money come? And I would have got fairly downbeat and I would have got fairly kind of looking and just say if I saw Tim on social media in the same area as me and Tim is working with whatever, Team X or Company X or whatever, like, geez, that would affect it. That actually did affect me, when you see
yeah.
people in your field. Um, but obviously, look, you kind of have to must be resilient and set a plan and goal set and all that kind of crack. But it is a fairly daunting thing set up your own business, isn't it?
It is, yeah, yeah. It's pretty brutal, and yeah, I think it does take a lot of resilience, and I think the people around you probably make a big difference as well. Like I was very lucky to have like both my dad and my brother are both self-employed,
Mm,
and they had my brother started maybe two years before I did,
mm,
so I was able to learn a lot of the lessons that he had learned 2 years
yeah,
previously from him, and obviously off my dad as well. So that was really good to have. But yeah, no, it's certainly very difficult. I think.
can I just jump in there? Do you
Yeah,
think the fact you saw your dad and your brother do it, like, do you think that had an influence on you actually going in and doing it yourself?
probably. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It probably did. Yeah, yeah. No, definitely. It was inspiration, I suppose. Really seeing that they were able to do it, and make a living out of it. As yeah, I think it inspired me, and it was kind of. I guess it. Yeah, I was probably lucky compared to other people then to know that, right, in my mind, yes, there is a pathway in self-employment, whereas maybe other people, they might be surrounded by people who are all in employment, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's not, you don't see it as much of a pathway, I guess. Yeah, no, that's a good point. It certainly inspired me.
yeah, because it's just I don't know what I saw. I was either reading something or saw something, but it was like I suppose it's essentially like a learned behavior that you see your parents going out doing it, and you know a parent could be self-employed and then the kid will be self-employed and whatever they do. And I've just seen a bit of a trend in that. I don't know where I read that. I was thinking about it recently. I found it fierce interesting.
Yeah,
It's like it's nearly in the blood. Now that's probably a stupid thing to say because anyone could be self-employed, but you know what I mean? It's like there's what I saw was there's a fairly strong possibility someone, if their parents or whoever were self-employed, that it could, you could see it somewhere else. But I'll have to find that again and go back over because it was just a really interesting point. And I remember going, all right, that's interesting. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
you
That is
know,
interesting, yeah.
I
Because,
think if anyone's listening, it could be a good study there
mm,
for anyone looking to take that up, work away. Um,
yeah, yeah, I haven't heard about that, but it is interesting. I think as well in sports psychology, you're kind of left with very little option, really, particularly in Ireland, because there are so little full-time roles. So sports psychology is kind of, or sorry, self-employment is almost your only option, really. So you have to go that way.
and would say I would have done my masters in obviously sports exercise psychology, but before that I did it in strength and conditioning. So I did it with a fairly, I'm not going to mention the name, but I did it with a provider that is fairly prominent in that area. They're moving into the sports
Okay.
psychology and sports science stuff now. But the one thing I found, especially with the S&C, right, is that the market was completely saturated. So a dream was being sold of being an S&C coach, work with sports team, blah, 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 blah. But like, I went and did a master's, I had no undergrad in it, similar to this. But there was like they were churning out undergrads, loads of masters courses, full time, part time, whatever it may be. and it was literally a money making machine for him, right? And more power to him, more power to him. I'm starting to see the same with the sports psychology. It's kind of in terms of people coming out and people around. There's a lot more courses, more masters courses, and again, it's great. But do you see the market being saturated or becoming saturated? And for yourself now, and even for myself, what do you think that the challenges are would be in that environment?
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's a good point. I think what you see now, I don't know any research exactly, but what I would imagine is that you'd see lots of people studying sports psychology, but yeah, the percentage of that go into full time
Yeah,
work in sports psychology is probably quite low.
true.
Whether that's because there aren't the opportunities there, or whether it's because that's not why they wanted to do it. Maybe they're a
Mm.
coach and they wanted to um, improve their coaching practice with a sports psychology degree. I don't know which of
Yeah, yeah, fair
those
point.
is the
Fair
problem.
point.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair point.
Um, but certainly, I think it's probably got to be a more clear pathway, I guess, after you come out of a master's, like they have in the UK and even the States, to so that people actually know where they're going after the masters. You know.
Yeah, yeah, because it's like obviously, you're accredited with Sports Ireland, and that's obviously been changed over now. So I'm going for a credit with the new crowd. I can't even pronounce their name, to be
Oh,
honest
very
with
good. ICSA, that's
you.
it.
There we go. Right. So
Mouthful.
yeah, I'm going to be looking to get accredited with them, right? The one thing I've found, right, I'm looking at courses and doing CPD. You could literally spend thousands upon thousands doing CPD courses. Now,
Yeah.
some brilliant. So, like, how do you decide what or in what way to invest in with yourself and your skill set? I suppose keeping that in mind that you could do a course here and it's whatever, €500 or €1,000, €2,000, but to kind of get that back in terms of a monetary return can be fairly slow.
Mm.
How do you decide kind of what level of CPD you do and what you kind of end up doing?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I suppose there was no sort of what a kind of regulation on it exactly, or kind of guide on it exactly when I came out of my masters. So I just started looking for anything I could do.
Mm,
To be honest, I probably do. I've done more kind of webinars as opposed to kind of a week long course or a month long course or something like that. I suppose I thought about what I need improvement on.
mm,
And part of that was the business side of things. So having studied psychology in my undergrad and then sports psychology in my master's, I realized I had no business background or marketing
yeah,
background or anything like that. So what I did is I think it was a week long course on Udemy. I think it was Udemy, one of those
yeah,
online courses in business and marketing, just to give me some sort of idea of what I was doing going into
yeah,
self employment. And that was really helpful, just to give me some idea. And other than that, on more the sports psychology side of things, I think if you're on Twitter, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're connecting with people, you'll see those things popping up, like
mm,
a webinar on psychological safety, for example,
yeah,
or athletes using self-talk, and just trying to stay up to date with all that stuff, up to date with the most recent research.
yeah,
Um, I'd also try to do a bit of reading regularly enough as well. So some of the latest journal articles, even go over some of my books from my masters as well. There's one book I have here. It's kind of my Bible. It's Being a Sports Psychologist. So I refer back to that a lot throughout my practice.
yeah,
Um, what else did I do? I always be keeping an eye, so I try to do at least one thing a week, whether that's even just listening to a podcast from a sports psychologist presenting their research, or whether it's going to a webinar, or whether it's spending an hour or two reading, the latest research, something like that. I think it's easy to get out of the loop with that once you finish in
yeah.
college, and go kind of really far into the applied stuff and away from the academic stuff. So I try to keep in touch with that stuff as much as I can while I'm not in college.
Mm. What do you prefer, the applied or the academic side of it?
I think I prefer the applied. Yeah, I think I prefer the applied. Yeah, I think I'm not to be cocky, but I think I'm decent at some of the academic stuff. Like
Yeah,
conducting research, writing an essay on something. Um, but I think I prefer the applied. I like working with athletes rather
yeah,
than studying them.
yeah,
But at the same time, you have to have a bit of both, to be honest, because I think if you're reading the research, it informs your applied practice. And similarly, I think researchers should be in touch with applied practice because that informs their research.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I'd definitely be more of the applied myself.
really.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And doing the masters stuff was great. It was interesting. It was really interesting, actually. Definitely getting it, being out there doing your workshops or one-to-ones or just general support to athletes on match day or in a bus or whatever is it's good because it's the person side of things where you get to kind of create that bit of connection. So that's great. And what would you say? I suppose not never. What would you say? Was you're working with the Limerick senior footballers at the moment, if I'm not mistaken, or you're
Yeah,
doing?
so I was for the first few months
Yeah,
of the year. It's finished up for now.
yeah.
But
What was that like?
possibly in the future. It was good, yeah. Yeah, it was really interesting. It was probably the highest level team I would have worked with before. So it was interesting. It was a lot of travel going up and down from Cork every week. But
Yeah,
I had a lot of time with them, which is fantastic. Even just I think it was about 30 minutes a week, and being along at training and being along at matches.
yeah,
I think the kind of formal time is really good where you really get to talk about what you want to talk about, but all the informal times, the kind of being on the sidelines, I think that's really helpful for developing relationships, getting to know people, and actually embedding in the environment.
yeah,
So I was doing a program with them over the course of it was eight workshops over the course of 12 weeks, and I was always at training as well, and went along to all their league matches as well. So yeah, it was good. It was really good experience, I suppose, making out a program, delivering the program, and then reflecting on it after,
yeah,
and how you view things differently after you've delivered it compared to beforehand.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? So I certainly learned a lot off it. I think probably I try to fit in a bit too much
yeah,
at times. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I think there's that habit as well for young practitioners, kind of just get everything we know out there.
yeah, yeah,
Rather than just feeding them a little bit.
yeah,
Um, Whereas I was working with Dolphin Rugby this year as well, and I took probably a slightly different approach, where I was kind of drip feeding sports psychology. I feel like so
yeah,
every week I'd have 5 or 10 minutes with them, not kind of a long hour-long presentation, but just a
mm,
really short presentation,
yeah,
just to give them one or two cues going into that match week.
yeah.
And I found that worked quite well, to be honest. I think I'd almost prefer that model to um, a few longer presentations, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And I had Steve Salas on recorded. I think we would say this was the last one I recorded for herself. And we were kind of chatting. So I would have done, to be honest, I kind of say this in a few podcasts. I don't really do research because I've done it once or twice where I've researched the guest, right? And it just becomes very wooden. I've all these questions I want to ask and the flow is
Yeah,
gone and whatever else, right? So I did a bit of research on Salas, to be fair. And he did a podcast. It was up on YouTube. I actually sent it to you after, but it was really, really good. And what he said was that being a business owner, he's in a similar field to us in England, but he found
right.
it or finds it at times really lonely. He says he's traveling on his own, he's away for business on his own, he's staying in hotels on his own. And he said it's actually quite tough. And he gets back in with teams then to have that kind of social connection, but to kind of be part of a team environment. How did you find the travel? How do you find the travel? Because like I'm
Yeah,
lucky enough now. I'm only went up to Cork City, so from my so 25
yeah,
minutes. When I was at Waterford, going up to SCTU, I think it was an hour and 15 each way. Um,
is
so
yeah.
you know,
That's interesting. Yeah, that is an interesting point. Like, I think, I think I'm probably happy enough in my own company a lot of the time, but
yeah,
then it does test you when it's long journeys as well. And I think just the role itself, even if you are in a team environment, you are still in a different role to
yeah,
everyone else. You know what I mean?
100%, 100%.
Um, so and especially for me this year it was a bit strange because I was working with a team that I previously played for. So I was going
Yeah,
from a role of being a player, and you have your teammates and you have your coach. There's a very clear role and structure and everything. You know, understanding of all the social norms and everything, and then you go into a very different role, but you still know the players,
Yeah.
and they still see you as a teammate, and you still see them as a teammate in some ways.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. So yeah, I think that can be a bit lonely, and sometimes it's probably best for you to be that way, to actually separate yourself from people a little bit, so that you don't see things as purely a player. You're able to see things as a sports psychologist.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I found that so look, when I first started off at Waterford, I was still with doing my masters and whatnot, so I was really lucky to get that gig. Great experience. Now, when Efi was brilliant. I remember it was 1 or 2 games I sat on the bench and I just found myself getting too involved in it because I'd be from the GA background, it was like I was a coach or a selector. You'd be that passionate about it. So I start moving away from the bench and just sitting away above in the stand. And now that's what I do with City. I think I was on the bench for 1 game out of the manager's request just to assess the bench, you would say, whatever else. But I'm actually now or sorry, I'm in the stand when we play games, and the injured players are in front of me. And we were playing, I don't know who we were playing. I think we were playing Rovers, and we ended up winning. But like one of the girls goes, "How does this not drive you mad? Like, how are you not going ballistic?" And I was like, be honest, like there's days I do, and I'm like, "Shit, fuck it, no, don't, just relax."
Yeah.
But it's definitely for any young practitioner or practitioner starting off like ourselves, that to be able to learn that, to separate yourself and be a bit detached from necessarily the result, where you're kind of just maybe focusing on performance or little cues that you can pick up on. It's definitely kind of added to me where I might have my own checklist of stuff I'm looking for. And look, the results. You obviously being part of the team, you want the team to win. But at the same time, the result doesn't really have much impact in terms of what I do, if you get me. Do you know what I mean? As in, I'm not win. I'm trying to put in place structures to help them be mentally sharp or whatever else to get a performance. But if they don't win, it doesn't hit me as bad as the players. Do you know what I mean? Makes sense, because I found there was once or twice now, just even with Waterford, our local club I was doing, where I was down after a performance and I was kind of going, of all the people now, I can't be that person to be down because I have to try and pick these lads up. Like, do you know what I mean? I have to try and do X, Y, and Z. How do you find that part of it?
Yeah, it's difficult. Like, I think is it Gary Keegan always says, like, everyone in the environment is a performer. So I like to take on that approach and apply it to myself. I'm a performer on match day, but I'm not, taking a penalty in front of thousands of people or hundreds of people, whatever it is. I still have a job to do, and I have to be able to perform at a high level, to allow players to perform at a high level. So part of that is emotional control. Me controlling my own emotions, and I'd call those kind of key performance moments, as a sports psychologist on the sideline, where you're actually a model for the players, and how you respond to things, they will take that on board as well. So that's probably where it comes out, is like, he's just talking about this, but this is actually how he acts on the sideline. And if they don't align, you're rowing upstream basically. So it's definitely something I've had a lot of reflections on this year, and particularly having worked with the team that I previously played on, who had obviously been passionate about wanting to win.
I was just with that.
Control that,
It must have been harder with Dolphin than it was at Limerick, was it?
On that side of things, definitely, because you want them to do well, of course you do, and but you end up using some of the stuff that you'd be teaching athletes. I mean, your breath work, your muscle relaxation stuff to actually calm yourself down in the moment, No, it was difficult for lots of different reasons, but that was one of them, just controlling yourself. And I wouldn't be one to go mad on the sideline or anything, but just still, I thought it was important.
Yeah, my sports GA in terms of coaching, so like I can remember being on the line and fucking refs left, right, and centre. Right. And to be fair, right, I've never ever gotten sent from the line bar once. I barely said that into the ref, and it was an All-Ireland semi-final with CAT. Good, geez, I don't know how many years before COVID, anyway, 5 years ago. And I barely said that into the fucker, and he sent me to the line. And the gas thing was, that would have been on a Tuesday night or Wednesday night. The following same week on a Friday night, I was over a club team and we were playing against his club team. and he was full forward, and he saw me after, and it was a begrudgingly, how's it going? But we battered him, so I was absolutely thrilled. But that was definitely a lesson I had to learn early on. I kind of realized that. That was definitely a lesson, because there's no point in me, effing and blinding when, not really my job. And come here to me, what do you think of, we'll say, the the process now involved of becoming, I suppose, certified, becoming accredited, whatever way you want to call it. Why is it important in the field we're in, do you think? So like, what's the difference? So you've done your undergrad, you've done your masters, you've done the time to get certified, whereas we'll say Bob there went into the 6 week or 12 week mental skills course, and now he's calling himself a mental skills coach, or he's calling himself a performance psychologist or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. But I suppose the whole thing is here to protect the public. I mean, the maybe people listening to this podcast or people who've heard of sports psychology probably won't know as much about the pathways to get accredited and what's the difference between somebody who's done a 6 week course and somebody who spent 4 years on it, for example. So we'd want to make sure that the public are educated on what the difference is between the two.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, then we want the public to get the best possible support.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you learn in college. At least I did my master's. I took a lot out of we did a module on professional ethics.
Yeah.
And that's something I definitely refer back to a lot if I'm working with somebody, knowing right what I can do, what I can't do, what is within my abilities, and like needing to refer somebody on to somebody who's more suitable for them.
Yeah.
Things like that, and setting your expectations, kind of saying, right, I'm not going to change the world for you. We're not going to, allow you to be the best player in the world, deal with pressure after one session. You know what I mean? But what I can do is give you more of an awareness of how your thinking might be affecting your performance. There's lots of things that come with the longer form of training, going through the bachelor's, the master's, the accreditation after. There's a reason for it, I think, that you probably wouldn't get in a shorter course. I think it takes a while to build up those skills as well, even things like critical thinking and research skills, stuff like that. So yeah, there's a reason for it, I suppose, really,
How do you deal with imposter syndrome? If yourself, or have you ever experienced it, kind of going, Jesus, I'm kind of bluffing it here, or I'm
definitely
talking about here, because that's definitely happened to me.
Yeah.
Once, actually. It's kind of, I suppose, look, it's all new, and you're starting off, and you're looking to offer value, and you're looking to do as much as you can. And as you mentioned before, you might try and give them everything, when it should be drip fed, or given more manageable bites. But have you ever had that moment, whether it be working with the teams or individuals as a sports psychologist, or as a business owner, where you're having that kind of moment of imposter syndrome?
Yeah, definitely, in all three, I'd say. Yeah, I think it's natural though. I think it's changing, but there's still a bit of cynicism around the field of sports psychology, right? And I think when you know that, and you're going into a talk or a one-to-one session, there's a little bit of fear, a little bit of hesitation, naturally enough, because you're kind of thinking, right, I don't know how they're going to take this, and we're all human. We want to feel valued. We want people to think that we're offering something valuable, So I think naturally enough, there's going to be that imposter syndrome. Yeah, I've definitely had it. My first, like when I was doing one-to-one sessions as well, you're going in not sure what to expect, and there was definitely at the start going into the one-to-one sessions, I kind of felt I needed to have a plan in place so that I didn't get lost, basically. I didn't want an athlete to ask a question and me not to know the answer. I was very afraid of that, whereas now, over time, I've kind of developed a little bit more of a relaxed approach, where I have a rough plan in place. And look, it depends on the athlete as well. Some people want a bit more structure to the session, and some people want a little bit less session. But I think I am a bit more relaxed going into sessions now. I take on this approach of roll with the punches almost, as opposed
Yeah.
to this is the plan, this is what we're going to do,
Yeah.
and we can't deviate from that plan at all.
Yeah.
And I think that approach is a lot more helpful with athletes, when you can be a bit more flexible, and if they bring something up, you can go with that rather
Yeah.
than just saying, right, we have to get back to the plan.
Yeah.
But yeah, imposter syndrome has definitely come up, and the group work as well. So like the presentation and workshop stuff, public speaking never would have been my strength, to be honest with you. I always would have avoided it if possible.
Yeah.
In school, in college, I dreaded presentations.
Yeah.
But it's part of the job, so I had to get over it. I had to just expose myself to those situations, try to learn, embarrass myself once or twice, and eventually I think I am a bit more relaxed now than I would have been at the start, definitely. And you learn little things. So again, as I was saying, like, I treat myself a little bit like a performer. So if I'm going into a presentation, I'll have visualized it before, and I'll have certain self-talk phrases I'll write down before, how I want to deliver the presentation. So make sure you're pausing, make sure you're comfortable, so the players are comfortable. I have lots of different kind of cues I'll tell myself before a presentation. So you pick up those things. They're not exactly taught to you in college, but I think you pick them up eventually.
Yeah, no, I'll be honest, I was lucky enough, I suppose, going back to what myself and Salas were talking about. I suppose he mentioned his superpower was that he was a teacher, and I'd have to agree, one of my superpowers that I was teaching as well. So I've been lucky that speaking in front of people is something I've been doing for donkey's years. But it is definitely daunting the first time you go into a team and they're looking at you going, who's this fella? What's he going to offer now? What's this fella about? But it is, I do get a kick out of that, because I would, at the start, have been very rigid. As you said there now, this is the structure of this talk or workshop and no deviation. Whereas now, any chance to get a bit of humor in or levity in at the right moments, I take, where you can see people laugh and have a joke and they just get a little bit more relaxed, they sit more into the chair and whatnot. And just with, I suppose, yourself now, what are your goals for Tim going forward, for the business going forward? Like, where would you like to go? What level would you like to be at?
Yeah, I suppose it's not to sound too like a cliche footballer, but it is one step at a time. I think, like, last year was my first full year, being able to work sports psychology full time. So that was a massive step. If I can do that again, I'd be thrilled. I'm not looking too far ahead. For now, I think that's the priority: get through another full year work full time sports psychologist. Like, that'd be huge. Because I suppose when I came out of college and started talking to people, that didn't seem like it would be possible. So having done that, it's probably weird for most people my age coming out of college. Like, the idea of making a living off something seems, that's normal enough. You've studied something for 4 years or so. You should be able to make a living. Yeah, exactly.
Keep it given.
So it's kind of, in my own mind, that was a massive achievement for me, being able to go a full year, make a living. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
But I suppose long term, I just want to keep getting better and better. Really, I suppose, become a better practitioner, get busier. What else? I mean, I'd like to work with a real high level team. I think that'd be really cool. Obviously, I work with some high level teams already, but I'd like to keep going, getting more experience with that stuff. What else? I'd like to work in other sports. I've worked across lots of different sports through my individual work, and it's always interesting to see how sports psychology is relevant to different sports. What else? Yeah, I suppose I'm not thinking too many years ahead, to be honest. It's probably about the next few months and next year or so.
Yeah, fair play. Yeah, because it's like, how do you? So you look on LinkedIn. You type in sports psychologist Cork, right? And you see whatever, 20, 50 other people in Cork operating the same field as you, male, female. You have a few clicks in them, one or two of really high profile teams. How do you view then the element of competition? So, like, realistically, you're in competition with other people, or do you look at it as if you're in competition with other people?
I think, yeah, if I'm completely honest about it, it's probably, yeah, you'd feel that way. Like, I would feel that way sometimes, but I think there is room for everyone that's there. As in, like, I think there's more work than we're led to believe, if that makes sense. Like, the number of athletes that are out there, even if you just look at Cork, and like, so much of my work isn't in professional sport. I mean, in amateur sport, there's a lot of work out there. Do you know what I mean? So I think, like, maybe that's the business head in me should be saying something else I'd say there. I don't know, but like, I think there is enough work. I think there's probably more benefit to us helping each other so that we can bring the overall standard up. And then ultimately the athletes and the teams get a better quality of support then. Probably the way we should. That'll be my sports psychology mind looking at it. My business mind looking at it. If I had a business mind, would probably be, yes, I'm a competitor here. I need to be better than all the other ones next to me. I suppose naturally not. Yeah, like, I mean, I'm competitive. I play a lot of sport, and I want to be, one of the best, of course. It's not something I think about too much, I don't think. Competition.
I would have been very bad at that at the start of the business journey. Whereas now, similar to yourself, look, there's work out there, and realistically, you could come in following me into a team or vice versa, and either way we'll offer value regardless of what's done before us, because we're different personalities, a different way of doing things. You'll form the relationships maybe a different way, and to be fair, you actually reached out to me, remember? We met there back, and it was like, hey, look, how are you getting on? We're both in the same area. Do you want to meet up for a coffee? And things like that I think are brilliant. I would have been dead against that stuff before. I would have been like, no, fuck, but now I just see, for me, my biggest element to help me get jobs, to kind of building personal relationships and building connection, and probably having a bit of a brass neck as well, to be fair. But I think they go hand in hand. Like, I think, like, I know from going in with City, I've got a lot of work outside of sport from it because of the relationships I built in there. You know what I mean? Whereas if I couldn't build those relationships, those extra things wouldn't have happened. People wouldn't kind of go, oh, look, I'll try and help this fella out now. You know what I mean? And I think for me, that's the biggest thing. And like, look, so there has to be change at some stage in teams. Do you know what I mean? Like, I won't be at City for, like, because it's the same voice, sports psychologist X won't be at Team X forever. Different management's change, whatever else, and for you, right, what would you say are maybe the 4 or 5 key pillars of performance? And this could be for you as in your role as business owner, or what you do, maybe what you'd see with a team that you kind of go in and kind of look, these are the 5 or 4 key pillars, or 3 key pillars of performance. Any question now, I know.
I suppose the way I present it to a team, I'm not sure if it's answering your question exactly, but the way I usually present to a team is you've got your physical, technical, tactical, and mental. So the physical is the S&C side of things, the fitness, cardio, all that stuff. The technical is your passing, your shooting, your tackling, whatever the technical skills are for that sport. Then your tactical, probably different depending on the sport. Like a field-based sport like soccer or rugby, it's your game plan, how you create space. In something like weightlifting, I did one workshop with the Cork Weightlifting Club one time, and the tactical piece is actually relevant to them in a very different way. So it's kind of like, right, are we deciding to go up a weight this time, or will we stay with what we are? So it's different for sport like that. And then the mental, which is all the stuff that we talk about, is your concentration, motivation, confidence, that would be how I would divide it. Now you've got your probably nutrition in there as well, but I'd probably put that under the physical bracket. I don't know, would
Yeah.
a nutritionist be happy with me saying that? But yeah, that's probably the way I would view it. Those four.
And for you as a business owner, then what are the key pillars of performance?
So how would I measure myself almost? Is it?
Yeah, so like, is it is like consistency an important pillar for you? Like,
Um,
is personal relationships. Like for me, my biggest ones would be building personal relationships would be one. Um, being consistent with, I suppose, how I deliver and who I'm kind of chatting to would be two. Um, what would my third one be? Personal relationships, consistency. I suppose, do you know what? Honesty and integrity would be the other one. They're
okay.
really, they're really, really important for me. And geez, I put myself in the spot here now. But yeah, they're my three examples for you there. Yeah,
You're grand. I'm trying to think of my own head as well. Like I wouldn't have them kind of deliberately thought out, but I suppose what I do every week is I have like just kind of key things that I want to focus on that week.
mm,
So that could be as simple as right this week I need to put a real big focus on my dolphin work. I need to put a real big focus on my
yeah,
one-to-one sessions. But what I also might have in there is something like efficiency. So that was my buzzword last week. One of my
yeah,
buzzwords last week going into it because it's a little bit quieter at the moment. So I can have a tendency of procrastinating a little bit and
yeah,
the work day just kind of dragging on. So I
yeah,
thought, right, I need to be really, really efficient today so that I
yeah,
can finish early. When I'm working, I'm working. When I'm not working, I'm not working.
yeah,
But I think, yeah, a lot of weeks I have in there is just high quality one-to-one support.
yeah,
Like that is my I would see that as my bread and butter.
yeah,
That's got to be really good quality. My
yeah,
one-to-one support. Um, that's probably the priority. Really is just high quality support. It's probably taken more of the sports psychologist approach as opposed to the business
yeah,
approach, but it feeds into the business approach as well. And that like
yeah,
I think I might have been saying to you before. I don't know who was saying it, but like I think good quality work is one of your best forms of marketing in sports
yes,
psychology. Because if you do good work, they will tell other people about that
yeah,
because
yeah,
it's a different service to other things where people are maybe a bit more hesitant to go for it.
yeah.
Word of mouth is very important, I think. So if you do good quality work, word of mouth will spread. Um, I don't know, am I exactly answering your question there? To be
Yeah,
honest,
no,
I'm
look,
going
it's
off on
yeah,
a tangent.
yeah, no, come here, I love tangents. I murder from. But yeah, you're probably right. I'm trying to do the social media stuff at the moment. And look, I've been honest, I'm probably landing a lot on myself between the podcast and the business stuff. And in the business stuff, and in sport, so there's three different kind of streams you're trying to
Okay,
social media going through, and it's definitely not my thing because I did it before, even going back to when I started, whatever, 2 or 3 years ago.
yeah.
Excuse me, but I was spending hours at social media.
It takes
I
so
go
long,
out,
doesn't it?
oh, it's like I was chatting to a coach I was actually working with, and he was like, "You need to be hitting 20 hours a week or something like that for social media." But I'm kind of going, that's too much. Like, I know, look,
Yeah, it's
I see the
crazy.
benefit of it, right? I see
Yeah.
I see people will land on a page and know exactly who you are because your Instagram page now literally is your business card, and
Mm,
but it's just the time it takes is a lot. Now, to be fair, word of mouth takes time too. Do because
yeah.
working with it might necessarily be meeting people every week or every day either. But it's all, I suppose, it's all part of it. Um, and kind of putting yourself out there in terms of what you do is, I don't know, is like, yeah, I have a question for you. Just this came to me.
Mm.
Do you see many sports psychologists broadcasting what they're doing in terms of social media to build their brand, or what would your thoughts on that be?
Not many, to be honest. Well, it's become more popular, certainly with the ones who are coming out of college.
Mhm.
Definitely, I've seen lots of Instagram pages popping up and stuff. And I actually think it's not sure, but did I see somewhere some college in England they're actually advising it almost as part of the course, which I think is a really good idea.
Yeah.
Because in reality, if you're working as a sports psychologist, that is part of the job is marketing and running a
Yeah.
business. So I do think it's important part of that.
yeah, I remember having a conversation with someone, and the kind of gist was you shouldn't be kind of giving away what you're doing. You obviously don't, like, do you know what I mean? You're not going to say exactly what you
Right.
do.
Yeah.
Just the impression I got was that, oh yeah, pushing yourself on social media isn't the done thing or isn't the thing to do. And I'm kind of going, well, that's great, like, but this was from someone who would say, who would have a profile, would say, or whatever else. And you're kind of going, well, that's great. You have a profile. I'm only out of college and I've got bills to pay. I have a mortgage to pay. Like,
Yeah.
there's a baby here now I have to feed. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of positives to it, Dennis, as well. Like because there's again, if we think about the public receiving our services, there's still a lot of what's the word, kind of mystery around what is sports
Yeah,
psychology. Like, what does a one-to-one session look like? What does a
yeah,
team session look like? And every time you go into one of those, you're looking at someone or a group, and they don't know what to expect. You
yeah,
know, so I think there's actually a lot of value in sharing that stuff so that the public knows more about it, so that our services are more accessible. Obviously, from a business point of view, that works
yeah,
out, but also for the athletes and the teams, they're more likely to become, if you like, more mentally ready if they're
yeah,
engaging in that stuff, and that stuff has to seem accessible to them. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And what advice would you have for people who hear this? Because look, this will be hopefully go around people who are practitioners, who are new practitioners, and maybe people who are doing or studying in the area. What advice would you have for, I suppose, people who are currently studying in the area and wish to make this a career for themselves?
Yeah, it's probably plenty of pieces of advice I give. Probably the first one is build up your network, like you were saying.
Yeah,
I think people, if you're involved in sport, use all your connections that you have. Um, and if that means, doing a free workshop at the start of your support, now not doing free work indefinitely, I think that's probably not a good business move exactly. But
yeah,
if it takes that to start off, to build connections, I mean, your network is massive. Your
yeah,
network is really big, not just for getting work, but also to lean on um, when you're unsure of something. So, like if I have an issue with a client and I'm not sure what to do, I have people I can go to ask for advice, like my supervisor, for example, or even peers who might be in a similar position. Um, that's really valuable to have
yeah,
that. The other piece I would give is, as best as possible, know what you're getting into. Um, know that if you're working in this field in Ireland, it's rare enough that you're going to get a full time 9 to 5 job.
mm,
Um,
yeah,
know that you'll likely have to go into self employment, and even if you do get a job with a team, that's probably only going to be part of
yeah,
your week, part of your income, and you'll have
yeah,
to supplement with something else. And even if that means doing something you don't want to do long term in order to prop up the sports psychology, it's probably worth it in the long term. What else? Just work on your craft as well. So like try and be the best possible practitioner you can be. So like what we'll often do with athletes is performance profiling. So you'll sit them down, you'll ask them, right, what does a world class soccer player look like?
mm,
And they'll say passing, or you say a world class midfielder would say, and they'll say passing, ability to see a pass, tackling. They'll list out maybe 10, 15 things, whatever it is. I think going through that exercise for yourself as well as
mm,
a sports psychologist is really beneficial, and just striving to get better at each one of those things. Because again, the better the work that you do, the more work you'll get, basically.
yeah.
Trying to think, do I have anything else?
I'll actually jump in on one of your points is do you like when you said there, know what you're getting into. I'd actually nearly say that should be the same with what team you could possibly working with in terms of trying to
Okay.
doing your research on the management, doing your research on, how do they value sports psychology. We'd like in Waterford, we'd brilliant lecturers with Kira, Emma, Jean, and Kev Mack. And Kev said that to us. He's like, when he meets a team, he's only interviewing them rather than them interviewing him. You
Mm.
know, and it was a really good point, and I would have kind of been bitten by that. where working with a team where the start everything was great, results came on, pressure was on, the coach didn't really engage anymore. And it got to the stage
Right.
we weren't even talking to each other near the end. There was no falling out, there was no
Yeah.
word, there was no disagreement. Now I should
Mm.
have gone up and experienced or with experience now in hindsight, kind of going, come here, what's the story? There's been a change in, how we interact or whatever else.
Yeah.
But in that example of that team, it was just definitely a box ticking exercise. Uh,
Right. Yeah.
it was definitely, and I probably knew it after it. Did I know it during it? Probably, and I definitely know it now in comparison to say what I'm doing with City and how we interact with the management there. Um,
Mm.
and that's something to be mindful of. Because realistically, starting off, you're going to take the jobs to build your profile, get experience, build a CV, but sometimes they might be the wrong jobs, you know,
Yeah.
and that can do damage too to you and whatever else. Maybe not in terms of reputation, but like unless it went horribly wrong, but like in terms of confidence, in terms of kind of self belief and stuff. Is
Yeah.
that's my experience. To be fair.
That's a really good point, Dennis. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's probably it's relevant to whether it's a team or an individual to know what you're getting into and actually make a decision at the start. I think,
Yeah,
as you say at the start, you want to say yes to everything because it's almost like they're doing a service for you by having you almost when you're
yeah,
really starting off. You're just so glad to have that
yeah,
opportunity.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. Even with that, then though, the one thing I've seen, I think you put into that group we're in the psychology peer group we have. Was it you put in about the Brentford thing or Bradford, England?
No, I think you or
Or
somebody
did I put
mentioned
it
it
in?
anyway. Was it
Or maybe
no
I put it
pay
in.
or something?
Someone
Was
put
it?
it in it. Yeah, 40 hours a week working with the academies for no money.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like,
It's crazy. Yeah.
that's scandalous. And if you think about like the investment, just yourself, investing in the undergrad, investing in the masters, like you're talking thousands upon thousands there. And look, it'd be grand. If you were living there and living at home and it was near you, fair enough, might be a
Yeah.
possibility then. But like, it's just I find that mad that uh, teams and organizations they'll say, "Oh, we'll give you experience," which is grand, but like there needs to be something kind of backing that up as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's another crowd. I won't mention the name, but they're a sporting organization that they're getting a load of people in for work experience, which is grand, but all you get is a bit of gear. Do you know what I mean? I find that
Right.
frustrating because like diesel expensive, petrol's expensive.
Mm.
It's I think even talking to clubs, everything's done on the cheap and everything, and I suppose yes, it's probably
Yeah.
the is to value your time and know how much you're worth. And
Yeah.
if you fall, like if they say, come here, how much for a session, you give them the price and they give you, say, okay, I'm gonna give you a fiver a session. Like you might say, geez, I'll jump with that. It's experience, great, blah 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 blah. But it was know your worth would be my tip to kind
Yeah.
of that question maybe as well.
Yeah. It's a really good point, and that's even harder at the start because
Yeah,
you
yeah.
don't really know how good you
No.
are. And you don't know if you've probably learned loads of theory and research in college. At least that was the case for me. You've learned loads. You don't really know how to apply it exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you're unsure of your own value.
yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
I think after I worked with one athlete at the start, right? It was someone I knew,
Mm,
and it wasn't paid for at all because it was my first time. I
mm,
was kind of learning stuff off it, and he was learning stuff off it as well. But once I saw the value that it offered him, for me that gave me so much confidence.
yeah,
And after that, I was like, right, okay, I'm providing a good quality service here. I can actually add value
yeah,
to athletes. That
yeah.
kind of gave that confidence to me after that.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I know we're just coming to the end there now, bud. So I've got kind of 5 quick fire questions here, right? What
Okay.
is the best advice you've ever been given?
Jeez, that's one to think about. Sorry, no, not very quick fire. Best advice I've ever been given. It probably around when I was actually finishing up rugby myself, and I actually talked to my supervisor about it. I had to
Yeah,
retire from rugby because of injury, and the way that she kind of normalised things and validated how I was feeling, and saying, right, it's okay to feel like this. Not exactly a piece of advice, but it probably had the most
yeah,
impact on me.
Yeah.
That'd be probably one of the things I'd say.
And is there anything that so people don't know about you that you kind of they'd be surprised at in a good way now, obviously.
Let me think. I don't know. I'm fairly boring, to be honest with you, Dennis. I suppose I'd be fairly kind of organized person with my
Yeah.
week. I set out my weekly plan. I've got my weekly goals, my quarterly goals, my yearly goals. I'm very kind
Yeah.
of organized and set out.
Yeah, yeah.
That might be something.
Jeez, I'd be the fucking opposite. You should ask my wife. Jesus, what were we doing there? I think we were going away there for a weekend, like to book the dog into kennels with one of our dogs. It has really bad anxiety. So we should have been doing it
uh,
consistently throughout. Sure, I didn't do it at all and left the book into the
Jeez.
minute, booked it the day before. So yeah, that's actually something I need to start doing, be more organized.
Jeez.
Uh, are you a man for regret?
Not really. I don't think so. Like, I don't think any big regrets are jumping out of my mind. Really, it's probably anything that I've done wrong. I've probably learned from. You
And
know,
what are you most proud of?
probably probably my career at the moment. Yeah, yeah, maybe that, and maybe also the way that I handled finishing up rugby myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. First two that come to mind anyway.
And if you had to describe yourself in 3 words, what would it be?
Um, kind, uh, genuine, and honest, probably.
Brilliant, unreal. Like we're just you brought it up there. I suppose just to finish your rugby part. What was the story there? What forced you to retire? And we can finish up on that then.
That was concussion. Yeah, so I had multiple concussions, and the last one, the symptoms went on for say 8 months or so, and
Wow,
yeah. So that kind of the doctor made my mind up for me, really, I suppose. So
that
that
must
was it
that
was
was
tough. Yeah,
tough to retire, but scary for those 8 months, is it?
yeah, it was. Yeah. Kind of just getting pressure, feeling in my head, getting headaches. Just the fact that it was still going on, was a bit scary. Now, thankfully, all fine again.
Yeah,
Haven't had any issues, but the right thing to do was to step away from contact sport like that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, it was a long transition, but I'm a lot better now than I was when I was going through it.
Brilliant, by fair play. It's great to hear you come out of it, and obviously you're still involved now in team sport, offering value in a different way. So Tim,
Thanks.
where can people find you and find information about you? Um, if you want to
So
share that there, please.
yeah, sure. So I have a website. Most of my information is probably on there. It's just timmarron.ie. And then there's my Instagram page as well. So share things there every now and then. It's TM Sports Psychology. Um, I might even just these things are kind of a bit of a mouthful, so I might even attach it in the description after. And then there's
Yeah, yeah.
also what else do I have? Just my email is tmarronpsychology@gmail.com.
Yeah, brilliant. Don't you? If you send me them, I'll put them in the description of the
Oh,
podcast when it
thanks,
goes on.
Dennis.
So Tim, come here. Thanks a million for your time, man. I know this will definitely offer value to anyone who's working in the field and anyone who's thinking of working in the field. And look, for my own perspective, lads, don't be a bit afraid to reach out to Tim. He's very receptive to that, and he's a good guy to have a coffee with. But Tim, thanks so much, my friend, and we'll be talking again soon.
Thanks a million, Dennis. Really enjoyed the chat.
Cheers, bud.